Sony PlayStation is in a lot of hot water. However, the news happening right now is people are so fed up with everything that a boycott is now being planned, and Sony has also finally responded to the backlash too, as seen here from Eurogamer. Players are planning a boycott in favor of defying Sony and their physical media push to force the company into listening to them. This boycott is being planned by Does It Play. It's an account that routinely chronicles which games are playable in today's modern era. As they say here in the original post, Sony wants to abandon fans. Let's give them a small taste of their own medicine. Together with other creators, we call for a 1-week PlayStation blackout in August. No logins, no play sessions, no purchases on any of Sony's platforms. The longer response below essentially says that they are disgusted with what Sony has become these days, and I have to agree with them. And they believe that this is the only effective way to get Sony to listen, which is to hurt them where it hurts them most, which is money, engagement, and more. The boycott, which is being called a blackout, is scheduled from August 23rd to Sunday, August 30th. The plan, which has gained traction, is to not engage with Sony's platforms, right, for the whole week, and Stop Destroying Games even has also endorsed this idea. As you can see, they replied to the post with their full support as well, as the boycott says here. Sony is completely out of touch with franchises players want to see return. PlayStation has never felt more disconnected from its community. And I also agree that Sony, they do feel disconnected from what the players want most these days. The first-party offerings from Sony especially are frankly abysmal this generation. I've actually been playing my Switch 2 more often these days. And recently, I decided to go look through the Nintendo eShop and just see how many exclusive titles Nintendo has on their platform. And it's a lot, let me tell you, okay? The amount of Zelda, Pokemon, Mario, Fire Emblem games, Xenoblade, and more, not to mention Kirby or Donkey Kong, was frankly ridiculous. I didn't even know there was a new Yoshi game, and it's there, it's out, it's not even full price, and the fact that I could own all of these games physically if I bought them, that's a big boon too. This backlash has gotten so bad already that companies like Insomniac, whose next game is Wolverine, have confirmed, as IGN reported here, that Wolverine's gonna be on a physical disc, which tells me that despite Sony pushing for an all-digital future the way that they currently are, even their first-party studios are leaning towards their player base's wants and needs over their corporate overlords to avoid further backlash themselves, and I don't blame them. Even the Expedition 33 guys, as Automaton reported here, have come to the opinion that physical matters, and they are saddened to see what Sony is currently doing. So the creator of Clair Obscur said, as you can see there, that he believes the removal of physical media is not a good look, and that people actually want to have something tangible to hold on to put on a shelf or collect themselves, because it means something to have that art that was made by people in your own possession. The co-founder of Sandfall, that's the Clair Obscur people again, also said here that they pushed for a physical release of the game despite knowing that they would make less money per copy sold, but they did it because they knew it was the right thing to do. Again, it's no wonder why people are backing this boycott set for the, part of August, because it matters. The fact that me, of all people, has been playing my Switch 2 over my PS5, man, that tells you everything, considering how much I enjoy collecting trophies. Honestly, if Nintendo added account-based achievements or trophies to their games like how PlayStation or Xbox has, I might just switch to Switch 2 going forward, because I would be playing everything there instead to 100% it. If Nintendo did that, they'd be frankly unstoppable, but the fact that I can go into a store right now, buy, let's say, Mario or Zelda, and have it physically be there on the actual cart, when I insert that into my Switch 2, that means everything to me. I just don't believe that digital only is a good future, so I'm not really surprised by this boycott. Yet despite this, Sony has no plans to back off, as Video Games Chronicle reported recently. We're going to cautiously move this forward. Sony says it hears PlayStation disc backlash, but will continue its plans. Yes, let's get into this now. So Sony has finally broken their silence on the whole backlash boycott controversy. And this all comes from Lin Tao, who's the CFO or Chief Financial Officer of Sony PlayStation itself. So these words are coming pretty much from the higher echelons of Sony as a company, so keep that in mind here. So what happened was this Lin Tao was a part of the Q1 2026 earnings announcement, which is when, obviously, the company, Sony in this case, has to speak to their investors about how things are currently going. I'm going to read you exactly what Lin Tao told investors. It starts here. We announced that from January 2028 onwards, we will no longer be manufacturing game discs, so we announced it 1.5 years ahead. She said more. There are various reasons we made this decision, the biggest being that digitalization of content overall has been progressing. That's the big factor. It's not not just for PlayStation, but for all kinds of content, digitalization is progressing. And so when we think about the future, we put in a lot of thought and time, and we cautiously considered this, and we came to this conclusion, and we're going to cautiously move this forward. She continues, to this decision, we have received various opinions, and people have strong views, that's putting it lightly, and we understand that the community has put forward these views to us. Again, putting that lightly as well. Games are loved by many people. It's a form of entertainment that's loved by people, and it's connected to people's fond memories in many cases, and so we understand those emotions. We want to consider that, and in the future digital ecosystem, how do we engage the gamers is something that we would like to continue to explore. I can see where Sony is coming from, but to be honest, all of this sounds hollow and corpo slop to me. How are you going to effectively engage your users when historically you have had sales that are nowhere near as competitive or user-friendly as, say, Steam is? How are you going to entrust actual faith in your ecosystem when you gave away all your exclusives for a time to a rival platform, while your competitor in Nintendo has been absolutely slaughtering it with first-party offerings that routinely come out, may I add, and asking your player base to pay the same prices they were accustomed to while offering no real leverage or reason that outdoes the physical variance? That doesn't sit right with me at all. Now, if the digital versions were, let's say, $10 or $15 less than they would be physical, then we may have something to talk about. But currently, we don't have that, do we? So what then is the point of all of this? As Video Games Chronicle again said here, Sony is currently deep in negotiations with retailers and trying to find a win-win scenario for everybody involved. Again, these answers came from Lin Tao during the same earnings call. Here's what she said to investors worried about how physical retailers will rebel against Sony's decision. For the last 30 years, we have been selling PlayStation, and retail partners have always been important to us. With the completion of disc production, we communicated this at an early stage so that we have enough time to be able to listen to various partners' voices. In North America, this has already happened, but without discs in the package, there's a code included. That's how they sell in North America. There are regional characteristics for each regional partner, so we'll try to have thorough dialogue so we can end up in a win-win situation. But it's not a win for North America though, is it, right? Lin Tao is just saying that to appease this investor. There's no solution there because the code that's in the box is not going to sell the way that they want it to. Nintendo already tried doing this and they got slapped around by their customers. As Game Rant shows here in 2025, Nintendo consulted with third-party companies to ensure that their key cards would theoretically sell well on Switch and Switch 2. But when people found out that the key cards didn't have the games on them, instead you downloaded the game digitally and the key card is used like a literal physical key to unlock the game, well, what happened? Right. People boycotted many of those games. They didn't want them. As PopGeeks reported also in 2025, this led to sales disasters for anything that was not first-party Nintendo because people quickly realized they did not own anything that they were buying there. Their games were just digital with extra steps. There was no ownership at all. Bizarrely though, Nintendo's own first-party games on Switch 1 and 2, they don't use this feature really at all, at least as far as I can tell. Most of, if not all, Nintendo first-party games are physically available on the actual keycard that you buy in store, meaning when you buy first-party, yeah, you actually own the game forever. It's very bizarre of Nintendo to offer this as some solution while not using it themselves. Apparently, the idea was that keycards would be used for games that were too large to put on the keycard itself. So this was, I guess, the solution to allow these games to still be sold physically. But it still doesn't change the fact that you do not own the game either way, does it? So knowing that Sony is doing the same thing, but not with just one game or two, but with all games, including their own first-party offerings, is baffling, okay? Their physical sales are going to plummet, and they know that. The only way a code-in-box sale will be viable is if these games undercut Sony's online prices by a large margin, and it needs to be a severe price cut to convince anybody to leave their house to go to a store to buy a plastic box with a code over what you had before. But if that were to happen, Sony is likely going to have protections in place with retailers so that they can't just undercut them too severely, which at that point makes you question whether any of this is even worth it then. It just seems pointless. But as Video Games Chronicle says here, the UK trade organization has already condemned Sony and believes that what what they are doing, especially without actually telling anyone before they just announced it that it was industry ruining of them to do so. As seen here, Sony's decision to do what they did has caused irreparable harm to both players and retailers. So the fact that people are trying to enact a boycott, it makes total sense to me. None of this is being done because it doesn't better your future. The trade commissions actually condemned Sony, saying that a digital license offers none of the freedoms advertised. They continued with this: physical games continue to bring people into shops and give consumers real value through gifting, collecting, and resale. The industry should be embracing every legitimate way consumers want to buy games, not narrowing their choices. Digital distribution has transformed gaming and is hugely popular, but it should complement physical formats, not replace them. Exactly, but Sony doesn't care. That's why a boycott is looming. That's why it's going to happen. Now, will that boycott be successful? So far, I'm going to lean closer to no, because something like that can only exist and live based on how many people actually know about it. Which I guess, by you watching this video, you now obviously know about it. But saying that physical copy sales means nothing is just cope to me. It's insane actually, but as seen here, Splatoon Raiders, yet another first-party Nintendo game that just came out on Switch 2, has actually sold over 474,000 physical copies in Japan alone, with games like Mario Kart World and more also selling more as time goes on. Mario Kart World has sold just over 3 million physical copies in Japan alone, including digital. That number is going to be far higher. But the fact that Nintendo's games continue to sell very healthily, with very low budgets may I add, is why Nintendo has zero debt, because they are making games that people want and meeting players where they want to be found. Whereas over here, when I go into a GameStop, most of the stores now are just Pokemon trading cards over actual games. Yet even then, this still proves that people want physical media, since obviously Pokemon as a trading card game is popular, as you probably know, because of the value of those cards themselves that are obviously physical. Sony is erasing all of this for convenience, they'll say. But what I think is happening is Sony is actually going to lose relevance in the physical world, while their competitors, in say Nintendo, will continue to eat market share and provide content in such a way that Sony has abandoned. I said this before in a video, but it bears repeating. This is why Nintendo is able to sell out almost every single day at their theme parks surrounding the franchises they own. Why there's actual trains dedicated to families or children for transport in Japan with Pikachu and Pokemon themed physical items inside for the kids to play with. Nintendo, in case you don't know, has a stranglehold on their consumer base because they know that the old ways are always going to be the best ways. That's why Nintendo has theme parks dedicated to Super Mario, Donkey Kong, or just Pokemon in general, because it's something you can physically go to, connect with, buy things, and keep it, and get the games as well that are also, you guessed it, physical for a reason. This is why I think in the long run, Nintendo will far surpass Sony and Xbox by simply doing everything in their power to ensure they are nothing like what those guys are doing. Sony is barely offering you any exclusives to even stay there. Nintendo is releasing new exclusives every other month, and their Pokemon trading card game influence is incredible. These are things that Sony or Microsoft could really only dream of. But you lose that leverage and cultural influence by removing your characters and IP, so to speak, from the cultural zeitgeist in a physical sense. This is why whenever you see Japan attending, let's say, the Olympics or something, right? What do they always bring with them? Right, stuff like Pikachu. Whether it's a giant parade or someone in a big costume dancing, people will see that. They understand that because it's physically there in front of them. It's part of the culture. And then what do? They go out and they buy things that are from those franchises, right? Sony doesn't have that. They don't even have any new franchises that they can reasonably latch onto in a sense at a similar level to even entice their players to play or even pay more for them. Maybe Astrobot is the closest example, I guess. But what is Astrobot going to do against the might of, let's say, Pokemon? I'm not saying Astrobot sucks. It's great, but it is what it is. This is all going to be in Nintendo's favor, and Sony is going to lose their relevance in the long run. But according to that same Lin Tao CFO lady, no guys, don't worry. Our strength is our content, apparently. As Genki, who works for Automaton.com, showed in this tweet here, Lin Tao said, "We don't feel that the disc is the factor to differentiate from the PC. Our strength is the curated content. That's one of our strengths. The game environment being stable, that's another strength. And compared to high-end gaming PCs, our products are more affordable. So we don't feel that the disc itself is a strong factor for differentiation. So going forward we can coexist peacefully with PC games. There's a lot wrong there in my opinion. Firstly, curated content. What curated content? You mean the constant push for female-led franchises by just removing the male heroes that people loved? That curated content? The sequels that have sold less than their previous offerings during the PS4 generation, let it be Spider-Man, God of War, and more. Looking to the future, Wolverine could be a slam dunk if Insomniac's writers don't ruin that game, but that's a we'll see for now. God of War Laufey doesn't fill me with confidence, and stuff like Intergalactic already is annoying people aplenty. Sony, if you ask me, needs to adopt the Nintendo approach. Smaller budgets, faster turnarounds, get more games out there and start making some new IPs. Stop chasing every game needing to have some annoying Hollywood actor leading it who wants their faces shown on the box art. Nobody cares, and they should just start making more stuff like Astrobot for God's sakes. Nintendo is dog walking you guys for a reason. You don't see them putting someone who's some big acclaimed actor to play Mario or something on the cover of their video game. It's just Super Mario. Link is Link, right? That's all you need. I don't need some actor who's in like Critical Role or something yelling at me, calling me this word or that word on Twitter, and then playing a character in some Sony game. It doesn't work, right? Like look at Saros, what happened there? Complete disaster, and you're letting them do this. And also Nintendo has released more Switch 2 exclusives this year alone than in Sony's entire release schedule for PS5 pretty much. PlayStation is just not as strong as they claim to be, and if they were, Square Enix wouldn't have abandoned you guys. After Final Fantasy 16 and 7 Rebirth of all things failed to meet expectations due to when they released due to console exclusivity on the PS5. What happened now? Right, now they are multi-platform forever. That's all Square Enix is doing, and that is on Sony. That's their failure. That's Sony's fault for not making their platform as compelling as it used to be, and they have to know that. Then claiming that your consoles are affordable, that's cope, because the PS5 is more expensive now than it was at release due to the rise in memory costs as we know. The PS5 will likely surpass $1,000 American due to those costs. Tell me exactly how that is affordable these days. And what will that even mean for your inevitable PS6 launch if your previous console that's 6 years old right now is already so expensive as is? So Sony may think that they can coexist with PC, but the truth is that Sony's competition is destroying them because Sony refuses to adapt. Instead, they think it's better to remove what made them unique, to be more like other platforms while not offering the same level of competitiveness that the very same competition already offers. Not to mention, out of any other platform, only one of the major platforms is region locked. Guess which one it is? Of course, it's PlayStation. Neither Nintendo, Xbox, nor Steam are region locked, but Sony is. Tell me, why is that the case? If everyone else can figure it out, but you can't, that's just another reason why people are leaving you the way that they are. So Sony can say that they're listening all they want. The truth is that people will protest. They will boycott. And if you don't listen to them, they are going to leave for other platforms. If the only difference to Steam is you are giving us female-led video games over and over that are humiliation rituals, while Steam is offering the same games that you guys offer from third parties for way cheaper than you could ever reasonably compete with, tell me exactly how any of this is supposed to be a win for you. And how are you going to compete with a Nintendo, given that their games sell more, are made for way cheaper, they come out way more often too? I mean, Naughty Dog has taken, 6 or 7 years at this point to make one game in Intergalactic. How many Pokemon games have come out in the same time frame that are going to sell more than Intergalactic will ever hope to do? How many Mario games have come out? How many Zelda games have come out? How many Fire Emblem games have come out, and Donkey Kong, and everything else that they've done? For God's sakes, Nintendo had a Star Fox game come out. Star Fox of all things. Like, Sony doesn't even have any new IPs that I can even reasonably think of this generation. I'm trying to think of a single one. I can't say Ghost of Yote because Ghost of Tsushima already existed. I can't say God of War because God of War Ragnarok and all their previous games existed. Even Spider-Man technically isn't even a new IP. I guess you could say Wolverine, but that's an established IP that already exists. And it's a licensed video game. So again, that doesn't even reasonably exist either. God of War Laufey, again, is just a spin-off of God of War. Like, what do you guys have that's an actual new IP that has been made in the PS5 generation that has sold well? Some people people might say, what about Saros? Didn't sell well. It sold like 500,000 copies in its debut, which is honestly terrible for a console that has like, what, 70 or something million like units out there in the wild right now? That means nobody's really buying these games. I guess Intergalactic's the only new IP that they have, but guess what? Again, 7 years from like when it takes to make one game. Nintendo is dog walking you guys horrifically, and Steam, like always, is doing nothing, and they're winning anyways. For God's sakes, for example, they had Daemon X Machina, Titanic Scion. That's a game. Look it up. Pretty cool game. Anyways, on the PlayStation Store during the summer sale, that game is like $50 or so right now to buy digitally. You want to know how much money I spent on that exact same game on Steam when I bought it like about a month ago? I spent, and I'm not kidding you, $1.50 for Daemon X Machina, Titanic Scion. How can you even compete with that? $1.50 versus $50 for the exact same game. You can't, and that's the problem. The fact that on Sony's consoles you can't even get really like digital keys from anywhere else except for on Sony's platform itself, whereas on Steam I can go on all manner of websites and get whatever I want for way cheaper by just curating it. It doesn't make any sense. Sony doesn't have anything that they can compete with Steam in any reasonable way. Even when it comes to online, right? Steam has free online for every single game that you want to play. If you want to play online on, say, your PlayStation, like whatever, what do you have to do? Right, you have to subscribe to some online services. Of course you have to, because Xbox kind of made them do that. But either way, Sony didn't do that during the PS3 era. They're doing it now with PS4 and 5 because I guess it's lucrative to them. But still, Steam, everything is free, right? You can do whatever you want. You can mod your games. You can barely mod anything on PlayStation because they won't allow it because it's a closed ecosystem. Sony also doesn't even have its like own handheld that you can play when you go on a plane or something. Like Steam has the Steam Deck, Nintendo, well, obviously the Switch and all that. Xbox has the Ally, which by the way, apparently can also play Steam games if you want to. What does PlayStation have? Oh, right, the PlayStation Portal. Oh, too bad. You need an internet connection, Wi-Fi, whatever to play it. Because the thing doesn't even include the ability to download any games natively to the hardware. Like, Sony is just behind in so many ways it's inconceivable at this point. And for them to have the hubris to stand there and tell us that, like, no guys, we're going to be the best place to play, when all you've been doing is making live service games that nobody wants, that just keep dying. You keep closing your studios down. You closed down Japan studios, for God's sakes, which kind of tells us everything that we need to know. And all you care about is your westernized like properties that aren't selling the way that they used to. Horizon Forbidden West sold like way less than Zero Dawn. Go figure. It's just all they're doing is just it's like all they're doing is just making games that nobody wants, and then just hoping that nobody notices that things are falling apart behind the scenes. I don't know, man. The whole thing is just a mess, but make it make sense, Sony, right? If there's anyone who deserves a looming boycott, it's Sony PlayStation, by the way. And frankly, they did this all to themselves, but what do you think? Subscribe for more if you'd like to. Thanks for being here. Can you tell that I'm mad? I used to love PlayStation. Now, I feel like I'm at war with something I should be calling home, but I can't. This all sucks, man, but a boycott and more is exactly what we need right now. But anyways, I'll see you guys in the next one.